Hey everyone, it's John Michael again. I wanted to tell you guys another story. I wanted to share another story with you about another time. The last video I did was about a time that I was harassed by the police, right? And so, long story short, I'm gonna keep telling my. Ooh, I got mocos. Oh, that's gross. Take two. Just kidding. No, I'm not gonna. I don't care if I have boogers. Honestly, I've been doing homework, so I'm really not worried about it. Been getting them A's, honey. Been getting them A's, hundreds, tens, all across the board. Anyway, this one's going to be much shorter, but I stopped by my old church, over here, Gateway, my old church, Gateway Church, right? I stopped by my old church and it just like came to me. I was like, dude, you have a cop story about church. And I was like, I gotta tell this one. So shortly after I became homeless, very, very shortly after I became homeless, I was raped, right? And it was just like a very jarring experience. And I'm not going to go into the whole thing. I probably should have said trigger warning or whatever beforehand. I'm sorry if that was, if that brings up bad emotions. But I'm not going to go into that whole thing because I'm fine. Like I'm alive, obviously, and I'm thriving. And honey, have you seen my skin, darling? I'm kidding. No, so I had parked at my church one night. And this was after I was like released from the hospital, and the hospital was like had checked me out and everything, and it was like not a good hospital visit, right? Like it was like it's obviously not a good hospital visit, right? And so I'm like, where am I gonna go sleep tonight? And I was like, I know, I'll go to the house of the Lord, right? I'll go to my church. Like that's gonna be a safe place. So I parked right across the street, right there, right over there across the street. And I was sitting there and I was so exhausted from everything that had happened in that like 2 days that I freaking knocked out, right? Like I knocked out, was asleep, right? And I wake up to a police officer standing at my window, tapping his flashlight, pretty hard, not too hard, or not hard enough to break it, obviously, but tapping his flashlight on my window like, hey, wake up. And I was like, and so of course I'm like, and I put my hand, like immediately I'm like, what's going on, sort of thing. And the officer, he says, whoa, put your hands on the steering wheel again, right? And in this case, I understand, like you're, walking up on someone and they start moving around, right? And it was just funny to me because he goes, what are you doing here? And I told him, I was like, I'm just like sleeping. And like, oh, my booger, sorry. I'm gonna go have to wash my hands. He was like, yeah, he was like, oh, duh. Like, it was just such a funny moment because he was like, what are you doing here? And it's like, when someone asks a dumb question and then they realize that it was a dumb question, and then they realize like, I'm wasting my time asking this dumb, that was his thought process. Because what had happened, I subsequently found out, is that someone had broken into the alarm on the church had triggered, right? And he was like, the alarm on the church was going off. And so he begins to realize like, oh shit, you were asleep. Oh shit, you probably weren't the one who did that because the alarm went off like a minute before they got there. The police station's literally right down the street. So he was like, oh shit, you probably aren't the one who did that because you wouldn't have been able to run to your car and pretend like you were that deep into sleep. And so he's like logically putting it together, right? And he's like, oh yeah, you're probably not the person I'm looking for, right? But what I thought was interesting is like the instinct, and I mean, yeah, I was parked on the side of the road, and I mean, there's definitely an argument to be made that I would be a logical person to go. But I mean, it was just weird to me. It was like one of those situations where it was so weird because it's like you click, as soon as I walked into the car, I would have been like, this nigga's asleep. Excuse my language. I would have been like, this guy's asleep. This is not him. Keep going. We got to find the real person, right? And it ended up being just a triggered alarm. I think it was like a malfunction or something. So it ended up being nobody like at all. But that's just another example. It was just another example. And he ended up like doing the same thing the other officer did. He kind of like made a comment about something on, it's like he had to tell me something. And so, yeah, I stopped here for a second to like use the Wi-Fi and work on some homework. And I was like, I'm I was like, I'm going to tell them this story because the story's hilarious. And it was just one of those stories. And then what's funny is I've run into him several times because I'm pretty active in the community. And I go to like lots of events and stuff. I run a nonprofit, so I go to lots of events. And I think I ran into him at like the mayor's hour or something when I went to go talk to the Visalia mayor at the time, Warren Gubler. I think I ran into him there and I was like, oh, like, hi, good to see you again. And he was like, oh, hey, how are you? And it's like, so it wasn't really necessarily a bad story. But it's just like one of those things. It's just another example of like how we're treated differently than other people. And that's all I really wanted to share. I just wanted to make sure that like I'm really driving home the point that like when we tell you about the way that we're treated, it's not for exaggeration. In fact, most of the time we do the opposite because most of you would not even know until you've been in a car with us how we're treated. Most of you, if you're not Black, you wouldn't really know. And so if anything, we kind of downplay it, right? Like we don't talk about it because for us, it's not relative to our survival in past the point of that moment in action, if that makes sense. And so for me, it's like, yeah, like I've got lots more stories. Like I have another one too. I'll tell you another quick one. And then I'll tell you another, like, yeah, really quick one. I was probably about 21. I was going to school to be a pharmacy tech at the time because for some reason I thought I was good at science. No, I like science. I'm actually pretty decent with science. Like I'm good with like concepts and stuff like that. Like I understand science. But pharmacy tech was not a good career for me because that's a lot of science and math and a lot of, you know, repetition. And I am too dynamic of a person to have a repetitious routine type job. Like I don't like that. I need something that's going to challenge me. I need something that's different. You're just counting pills all day, right? But I digress. I was in Tulare. This was in Tulare that this happened. So the last accident or incident happened in Visalia. I was in Tulare, which is town next door, my hometown where I'm from. And I dropped my friend Graciela off at her home. Gracie, my friend Gracie, Graciela, dropped her off at home. She lived in a pretty rough neighborhood. And it was on the west side. So, and when I say rough, I mean like gunshots at night, you know, like pretty rough, like gang activity, that sort of thing, right? But Graciela's, you know, the sweetest pie. She lives in Oregon now, but she's the sweetest thing. And I dropped her off at home and we had gone to, I want to say we had either gone to go see a movie or we went to go to someone's function. It was some sort of like, there was something that happened, but I remember that it was very much not like a drinking night. It was very much not like a woo party, went to the club. Like it was not that kind of night. It was like, we went to one of our friends' function or something. And it was like, you know, something that they had going on and it was like not a drinking night. Right. And so like a graduation or something. So then I drop her off at home and I take off and I'm driving to my house in Visalia. And so I'm driving and I get pulled over and the cop is a young cop. Like he's probably about my age at the time. I was 21 or 22. So he's 22 or 23 maybe. So he was probably about my age at the time. Right. And so he immediately is like super aggressive towards me, right? Like he's got his hand on his gun. He's talking to me like almost like a fucking stereotypical cop, like, show us where the guns are, scumbag, like that kind of way he's talking. And I was like, I'm like a laughing kind of person at serious situations that other people might not laugh at. I think it's funny because I'll like imagine in my mind like that this person's like a character from fucking Die Hard, wannabe, like a wannabe reject from Die Hard or something. But the way he did it was like so funny. He was like, and I didn't laugh at the time, but I laugh now. But he's like, yeah, what were you doing in that neighborhood you were just in? I've been following you for about a mile. And I was like, I was dropping my friend off at home. And he's like, oh, you expect me to believe that, do you? I was like, yeah, because it's the truth. And he's like, no, I know you're a drug dealer. I'm not even kidding. He's like, no, I know you're a drug dealer. And I was like, okay. And I was like, and I made a joke, right? I was like, well, I guess technically that's true because I'm going to school to be a pharmacy tech. So, I mean, I guess technically I am a drug dealer, right? And so wrong joke to tell a police officer, wrong joke to tell a police officer, right? And so immediately he's like, go ahead and step out of the car, right? So I'm just like, okay, great. And so this was when I was like 22 or 23, right? So like I did not have any clue about my rights or anything like that, really. Like I didn't know that stuff. Like in the last video, I was like, I'll waive my Fifth Amendment, right? Like I didn't fucking know any of that shit back then, right? So he's like, step out of the car. Now it's two cops, right? This story, only two cops showed up. It was the young cop, and then it was pretty clear to me that this young cop was like finishing his final hurdles or whatever for him to be able to patrol alone. Because the guy that he was with was like, it was a sergeant, and could tell by the rank, right? What are they, sleeves, stripe sleeves, whatever. I could tell he was a sergeant, right? And because my mom, my parents were law enforcement, so I'm like, you're a sergeant, obviously. And so he's like, yeah, so he's asking me, so I'm going to go ahead and search your car, right? And I was like, okay, I mean, that's fine. Like, I ain't got nothing in it anyway. Again, like, I don't have anything in there anyway. Go ahead. And I was like, and so he pulls out my pharmacy tech books and he's like, oh, and what are these? And I had like 4 books, right? Like I had like 4 books because we had like the drug, the study book, the pharmacology, the freaking pill book. We had like 4 different books, right? And so I was like, I told you I was going to school to be a pharmacy tech. And he was like, uh-huh. And he's like flipping through them to make sure that drugs aren't hidden in the pages. I'm just like, and so this sergeant is getting like increasingly embarrassed, right? Like, because he's not really saying anything because he's not supposed to. He's supposed to observe his rookie or whatever, and then, let him do his thing. And then I'm sure they had it. All I know is by the time I left, it was a go ahead and shut the car off moment. Like, go ahead and go turn off the car. We're going to talk. So anyway, like, long story short, he just is an asshole, right? An absolute asshole. Absolutely just like terrible. He just everything he said to me was like absolutely the worst way to like treat anybody. Like, I wouldn't want anyone to be treated that way. I know you're a drug dealer. Like, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean I'm a drug dealer? Like, did you see me physically hand drugs to someone and money be handed back to me? No, you didn't see that. You just followed me from a bad neighborhood, predominantly Black and Hispanic. That you can see that I'm a Black person, so I clearly am a drug dealer. But yeah, that's another one for you. It was hilarious in retrospect. And I don't think I've ever met him again. I don't think I ever saw him again, but I know he doesn't work for Tulare anymore. I know that because I know a lot of the Tulare officers. And so, I just wanted to give you guys a little bit more perspective. And honestly, like, some of you like might take my tone, the laughing tone, as to be like, oh, then it's funny. And I hope you did laugh at some of it because it kind of is funny, but really at the end of the day, it's really not funny. It's really not funny that I am lucky. I can be like, whew, another one, put another chalk on the board, right? Or another scratch on the board, survived another day, survived another encounter with a police officer. That's not how anyone should live. You should not be, your biggest concern is, whew, didn't get a ticket, right? That's most people's biggest concerns when they deal with police officers. Mine is, oh, good, I didn't get shot. Oh, amen. Praise Jesus. That's not okay. That's not how anyone should live their lives, I don't think. I don't know what you think, but I'm about to go work on some more stuff. I'm done with one of my classes. I just have one more unit, and I'm like, whew, and I got to start the other one. I just started another class this week, and then I've got another one starting, I think, next week. So I'm going to go handle business. But I hope you enjoy it, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching. Bye. Say bye, Mongo. Say bye, Mongo.